Now, Labour have vowed to scrap the government's shoplifting charter and make abuse of shop workers a specific offence.
What is a shoplifting charter? The Labour is alleging the Conservatives changed the law to classify the theft of goods under £200 as low-value shoplifting, meaning police don't prioritise investigations or prosecutions into all of this. Joined now by Shadow Minister for Policing, Alex Norris. Alex, good morning. Is it fair to term all of this a charter, a shoplifting charter?
Good morning, Eamon. Thanks for having me. Well, what we've seen is nearly a decade, certainly since the disastrous decision to downgrade theft under £200, of nearly a decade of public policy choices that have made shoplifting easier, which is why we've seen this significant rise, a quarter up in the last year alone, huge rise of violence and abuse against retail workers, 850 every day. So whether you call it a charter or anything else, that is hugely important and needs very swift action.
And just curious to know, how you think you're going to be able to police this, given we know that police forces are already stretched. I mean, at the moment we're seeing, yes, an increase in shoplifting, which is deplorable, but equally it's got to the point where we know we don't have the resources to fund this kind of change that you're suggesting.
Well, I mean, that tells us a story about policing in this country and how we've been policed over the last decade. Again, it shows that the decision to cut police was a total disaster. But what we've seen now as those police officers are being added back is that they're often not in the right places. So we're hearing really concerning stories about police officers, warranted officers with those skills and talents to be in neighbourhoods, deterring, tackling crime, actually being put in roles that perhaps you would call in the back office, which are important roles but are traditionally done by civilian staff because of budget pressures. So that's why we've made our commitment for 10,000 more police and community support officers in neighbourhoods on that front line. We think that's how you'd make an impact on it.
Alex, obviously how this perturbs people, how it annoys people, and you intend then to make this more answerable than you feel it has been in recent years.
Yeah, well, absolutely. At the end of the day, we have police and crime commissioners who have that responsibility for policing in their community, and we see that it tends to be areas with Conservative police and crime commissioners that have the highest rates because there doesn't seem to be the same focus on this. But in this place today, we are discussing legislation about crime and about justice that is completely silent on retail. That's a real failing. So I will, and my colleagues will be trying to add that back into the bill. The government needs to listen, work with us on that so that we can tackle this scourge.
Lots of talk on the airwaves this morning about the Elgin marbles. Reportedly, the Prime Minister belatedly cancelled a meeting with the Greek PM yesterday because he didn't want to be asked to give them back. Labour's position on this slightly different. Tell us what Sir Keir Starmer would do with the Elgin marbles.
This is not an issue of significant prominence for us. We're seeking to form the next government. We do that because we care about improving people's jobs, their lives. We want more and better housing. We want to tackle climate change. That's the sort of reasons we're seeking office. This isn't a huge priority for us. If the British Museum are talking to the Greek government and are coming to some discussions about a loan, well, that's something we would look at, but it's not something we're seeking to initiate, or, as I say, something of particular prominence for us.
And what about reports that he would seek some sort of legal path to return the Elgin marbles to Greece, which is what we've been hearing?
Well, again, that's not at all at the top of our inbox. We've not got proposals to say change the Heritage Act. If others come forward with ideas, then always we'd listen, but that's not something we're seeking to initiate.
Can we talk about immigration? Yesterday, Yvette Cooper, the Shadow Home Secretary, calling Mr Cleverly Colonel Calamity. He's got a tough job, though, you've got to admit, trying to bring down net migration. Everybody's agreed it's too high. You've lost us, have you? Are you able to hear us at all there, Alex? Hoping you've still got communications with us. Oh, just as we're getting to the good bits. Oh, what a shame.
Sorry there, that was Alex Norris. Alex is the Shadow Minister for Policing. We were talking about shoplifting and how he intends to take it more seriously than perhaps it has been. Political editor Christopher Hope. Christopher, we're just hearing from Labour there. Not a priority for them. They're not seeking to initiate the return of the Elgin marbles.
That's right. It's not. It's an issue which, of course, the Tories have made a big issue after a weekend interview with the Greek Premier Kyriakos Katatis, forgive me. He made clear that he's likened the issue of the Elgin marbles to kind of carving up some art between the Louvre and the British Museum. He said it's not fair, and that really annoyed, I think, the number 10. So a meeting today has been cancelled. But I think going back to that point on shoplifting there, fascinating. I think Labour are on something quite promising there for them. Shoplifting has been illegal since 1968 under the Theft Act, but the coalition government in 2014 did make it clear that if any value items nicked under £200, the maximum penalty was 6 months in jail, but very rarely prosecuted. More than that, it's 7 years in prison, and they want to come down hard now. The numbers are spiralling up 20% in a year, in some areas up 40%. I think even anecdotally, we know people talking about theft from shops. If you watch these programmes on TV, I've been watching, often the police are very rarely called. It's dealt with by security guards. A warning is given. The person is left to go on their way. I think there is an issue, out there in the country about shoplifting. I think Labour could be on something here.
Well, I mean, I just don't know how they would police it. And I suppose that was my point to him. We know how stretched the police are. Obviously, he wanted to talk about Conservative cuts to police, but, we are where we are. It's a wonderful ambition. Most of us would agree shoplifting's awful, but how on earth do we divert resources when, we're seeing police officers on the one hand going after people who put tweets up that they don't like, but there's not enough people on the streets as it is for actual crimes, for serious crimes, and then for this sort of thing. How do you solve it?
Well, of course, you're right. It could be more money. I think that the Tory party has slightly got away with this idea of soft justice, of not putting people in prison for sentences of less than a year. That was unveiled in the King's speech. The government said at the time it was grasping the nettle, but the issue of being soft on crime is something which could resonate, I think, for voters. It could. I mean, the idea of going after theft, people taking things from shops that they think is theirs, and of course they're stolen, that does offend against, I think, some form of fair play, decency, or law-abiding Brits might agree with that. I think if they can find a way to fund extra policing, maybe fund some more security guards, see what Labour can do on that front, it could be an area where they might strike some meaningful blows against the Tory party. But I do take your point entirely about resources. But I think at some point a line's got to be drawn, and maybe Labour are saying that here.